Good evening. I'm a little nervous to speak tonight because I have not been able to have much intelligent conversation in the past 8 months. I'm accepting this incredible award on behalf of all my fellow Lyme warriors out there who are living in darkness, battling this silent killer. I went from being an outspoken, multitasking, social butterfly to being trapped in a mentally paralyzed cocoon. 2.5 years ago, I started going to my doctors complaining about exhaustion, joint pain, insomnia, but most importantly, my neurological malfunctions. I often said, it feels like I have an infection in my brain. I felt sick in my head, but unfortunately, my doctor after doctor kept telling me I was overworked and juggling too many things at once. Supposedly, my blood work looked normal, so over and over again, I was sent home with more and more prescription drugs, like sleeping pills, Adderall, steroids, and of course, the fashionable antidepressant. I was so not depressed. Yes, of course, I was annoyed with feeling stupid and exhausted during the day and dealing with severe insomnia at night. But nevertheless, I was living the best time of my life. By pure discipline, loyalty, and commitment to the show, I managed to finish my season on Bravo TV as a Beverly Hills housewife. The last night of filming, I realized that something was really wrong with me. As I was trying to defend myself in an argument with one of the cast members, which you know what they're like, it wasn't easy. But that moment was the defining moment for me where I realized that I'd gone down. My brain was no longer able to pull information to form sentences. I had no word retrieval, and my memory was blank. And as I answered her, I said, "You're such an asshole." And you know, in Holland, in my language, we don't even have that word. We don't even use it. It's a word that I've never used before and probably never will again. So it was just that moment, the light had gone off in my brain. And when I finally released myself from being the tough cookie that I am, my body just shut down. I was so exhausted. It was even hard for me to walk from the bed to the bathroom. My migraine headaches were unbearable. I had this unexplainable cough that lasted for months. And my being literally dropped off planet Earth. I know we must never expect a return for our charitable work, but it was surely nice to be married to one of the most charitable men in Los Angeles. My husband rallied a team. No, not a team, an army of the best doctors to fix his new bride. If it wasn't for David's perseverance, I probably would not stand here today. We were so fortunate to have access to all these wonderful doctors. I often felt guilty for being so privileged to have all these helping hands. But unfortunately, that privilege did not mean anything. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles and was absolutely turned inside out. But there were no apparent explanations for my drastic health changes. Besides the swelling in my frontal lobe and all kinds of viruses, they really did not know what to make of me. So they sent me home saying I had chronic fatigue syndrome. Hopeless and confused, I landed back in my bed at home, where I experienced some of the darkest days of my life. By now, I had become a shell of the woman I used to be. I could no longer participate in my life. I was unable to read, process information, write, or do anything as simple as watch TV. I honestly stared at the ceiling for so many months that I still remember every light bulb in it. My children's after-school smiles at my bedside were the only bright spot in my days. It was for them and my husband that I found the strength to fight this lonely battle and continue to breathe and live in this body that once belonged to me. In a wheelchair, crying the entire 12-hour flight with unbearable pressure in my brain, I made it to Belgium to meet Professor Melier, a leading chronic fatigue specialist. Somehow, my intuition gave me the hope that I would find my answers back at home in Europe. When I finally sat down in his office, he spoke to me in my mother language, and he said that in 40 years of practice, he had never seen a medical workup as extensive as mine. But unfortunately, it did not give him the answers he needed to treat me. 6 weeks later, once I was back home, we Skyped and he diagnosed me with chronic Lyme neuroborreliosis and a handful of co-infections. A simple culture had shown the spirochetes in my tissue. At that point, I had this moment of clarity. Everything he said all of a sudden makes sense as he explained the cause of my symptoms. 2 days later, I had a port surgically implanted in my chest, and even though I had a new spark of hope, the next chapter of this nightmare had just started. While my friend Tom continued to research and consult different Lyme specialists in the country, my husband took charge and became my private nurse, and together we started a brutal 90-day whirlwind of intravenous antibiotics around the clock. Meeting Mr. Herxheimer was a rude awakening, and probably the worst date I've ever been on. I don't think my English is good enough to explain to you the pain and the sickness I experienced every day of these 3 months. I know, I'm sure most of you here know what it means. I know the standard treatment for chronic Lyme is 28 days of antibiotics, and after that your insurance tells you you're on your own. Well, trust me, after 28 days of antibiotics, a combination of 4 different antibiotics, I barely and rarely made it down to dinner with my children at night. After 60 days, I started to see a bit of improvement, but minimal. Unfortunately, my body had become a toxic waste dump by then. The yeast started to come out of every part of my body. As I was desperately approaching the 90-day finish line, I often asked my husband, "Do you think I'll ever be normal again?" And he would read to me the daily log he wrote of my process, which was good, but far from normal, and not comparable to the little Dutch girl he met 7 years earlier. Through my friend Suzanne Summers, I ended up at the Sponical Wellness Institute in Florida. Leaving my loved ones for 6 weeks was a severe choice, especially for a mother duck like me. But I guess severe measures sometimes require severe choices. And even though I don't have a clean bill of health yet, I'm out of bed and well enough to stand here today and speak to you. So my question is, where does one turn when diagnostic testing in the US fails and doctors keep sending people like us home with prescription drugs to mask our symptoms? I ask this question to you, not for me, but for the hundreds and thousands of Lyme sufferers out there that have come to this roadblock. We live in the most extraordinary country with the best doctors in the world, but the truth is, we don't have proper diagnostic testing, and there is no defined treatment protocol or cure for chronic Lyme disease. As hard as this journey has been for me, I feel I was given this experience for a reason. I'm here to represent all my fellow Lymies. We will no longer allow this disease to terrorize our lives. We must break the silence. We must speak up for those who cannot be heard. We must restore hope for those who have given up. And we must share our stories with the world. Thank you very much for listening to my story tonight. And I want... Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I want to ask you one more question. Thank you. You know, it's a funny place to stand here and ask for money, but for the Lyme Research Alliance, I dare to actually beg you to make a donation and be part of making a difference in our world. Please be generous and help out. Thank you.